Well, hello, friends. Welcome to Monday Night Moods, where you're very hot today, Storyteller. My face is on fire for some reason, and it's not because I've got fire behind me, because that's just a picture. Um, I just feel very hot in the face. So, I don't know. Hope I'm not coming down with something again. I just seem to be constantly ill at the moment. But yeah, anyway, welcome back to Monday Night Moods, where in this first reading, I am reading Paradise Lost, the wonderful, wonderful poem in 10 books by John Milton, where we delve into the story of Lucifer and the devil and the war between the angels and all the fun stuff. We've seen Pandemonium, we've talked about going back to war with heaven already, and books 1 and 2 have been read. You can find those over on the YouTube, Drunken Storyteller's YouTube channel. I have both of them there. They're somewhere on the Twitch channel. They should be still, maybe, I think. I don't know. Excuse me. Sorry if anybody's listening with headphones in there and heard that and is now deaf. But today we are going to go into book 3. I am late today for various reasons, and that is good because book 3 is one of the shorter books. It's not going to be over an hour like it was last week. But yes, so no, you can go away. Come on, go away. Why is this being a pain in the ass? My bot is not working. Okay. Yes, Ben, my bot is not working either to get rid of it. So, meh. Oh well, whatever. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm getting spammed in the chat, and my bot is being a pain and not getting rid of it. Oh well. On with the reading. We are into book 3, as I say. So, sit back, grab yourself a drink, pint of vodka. No, it's not a pint of vodka, it's just a glass of water. And enjoy the tales. Hail, holy light, offspring of heaven firstborn, or of the eternal co-eternal beam. May I express thee unbalmed, since God is light, and never but in an unapproached light dwell from eternity. Dwelt thee then in thee bright effluence of bright essence increate? Or hearest thou rather pure ethereal stream, whose fountain who shall tell? Before the sun, before the heavens thou wert, and at the voice of God, as with the mantle didst invest the rising world of waters dark and deep. One from the void of formless infinite, thee I revisit now with the bolder wing. Escapest the Stygian pool, though long detained in the obscure sojourn, while in my flight through utter and through middle darkness born, with other notes then to the Orphean light. Excuse me. With other notes then to the Orphean lyre, I sung of chaos and eternal night, taught by the heavenly muse to venture down the dark descent, and up to reascend, though hard and rare, thee I revisit safe, and feel thy sovereign vital lamp, but thou revisited not these eyes, that rowl in vain to find thy piercing ray, and find no dawn so thick a drop serene hath quenched thy orbs. Or dim suffusion veiled, yet not the more cease I to wonder where the muses haunt clear spring, or shady grove, or sunny hill, smit with the love of sacred song. But chief thee, Sion, and flowery brooks beneath that wash thy hallowed feet and warbling flow, nightly I visit, nor sometimes forget these other two equalled with me in fate. So were I equalled with them in renown, blind Thamaris and blind Meonidas and Tiresias. Got a bit of a frog in my throat, as we say. Uh, and Phineas prophets old. Then feed on thoughts that volunteer move, harmonious numbers, as the wakeful bird sings darkling, and in the shadiest covert hid tunes her nocturnal note. Thus with the year seasons return, but not to me returns day, or the sweet approach of even or morn, or sight, or vernal bloom, or summer rose, or flocks, or herds, or human face divine, but cloud instead, and ever during dark surrounds me, and the cheerful ways of men cut off, and for the book of knowledge fair presented with universal blank of nature's works, to me expunged and raised, and wisdom at one entrance quite shut out. So much the rather thou celestial light shine inward, and the mind through all her powers irradiate there, plant eyes, all mist from thence purge and disperse, that I may see and tell of things invisible to mortal sight. Now had the Almighty Father from above, from the pure empyrean where he sits, high throned above all higheth, bent down his eye, his own works, and their works at once to view, about him all the sanctities of heaven stood thick as stars, and from his sight received beatitude past utterance. On his right the radiant image of his glory sat, his only Son. One on earth he first beheld, our first two parents, yet the only two of mankind. In the happy garden placed, reaping immortal fruits of joy and love, uninterrupted joy, unrivalled love in blissful solitude. He then surveyed hell and the gulf between, and Satan there coasting the way of heaven on his side, night in the dun air sublime, and ready now to stoop with wearied wings and willing feet on the bare outside of this world that seemed firm land embosomed without firmament, uncertain which, in ocean or in air, him, God, beholding from his prospect high, wherein past, present, future he beholds. Thus to his only Son, foreseeing, spake, only begotten Son, seest thou what rage transports our adversary, whom no bounds prescribed, no bars of hell, nor all the chains heaped on him there, nor yet the main abyss wide interrupt can hold? So bent he seems on desperate revenge, that shall rebound upon his rebellious head. And now, through all restraint broke loose, he wings his way not far off heaven, in the precincts of light, directly towards the new created world, and man their places, with purpose to essay if him by force he can destroy, or worse, by some false guile pervert, and shall pervert, for men will hearken to his glozing lies. Glozing is a new word on me. And easily transgress the sole command, sole pledge of his obedience. So will fall he and his faithless progeny. Whose fault? Whose fault but his own? Ingrate, he had of me all he could have. I made him just and right, sufficient to have stood, though free to fall. Such I created all the ethereal powers and spirits, both them who stood and them who failed. Freely they stood who stood, and fell who fell. Not free, what proof could they have given sincere or true allegiance, constant faith or love, where only what they needs must do appeared, not what they would? What praise could they receive? What pleasure are you from such obedience paid, when will and reason is also a choice, unless useless and vain, of freedom both despoiled, made passive both, had served necessity, not me. They, therefore, as to right belonged, so were created, nor can justly accuse their maker, or their making, or their fate, as if predestination overruled their will, disposed by absolute decree, or high foreknowledge they themselves decreed their own revolt, not I. If I foreknew foreknowledge had no influence of their fault, which had no less proven uncertain, unforeknown. So what? So without least impulse or shadow of fate, or out by my immutable foreseen, they trespass, authors to themselves in all, both when they judge and what they choose. For so I formed thee free, and free they must remain, till they enthrall themselves. I else must change their nature, and revoke the high decree unchangeable, eternal, which ordained their freedom, they themselves ordained their fall. The first sort by their own suggestion fell, self-tempted, self-depraved. Man falls deceived by the other first. Man therefore shall find grace, the other none. In mercy and justice both. Through heaven and earth so shall my glory excel, but mercy first and last shall brightest shine. Thus, while God spake, ambrosial fragrance filled all heaven, and in the blessed Spirit elect sense of new joy ineffable diffused. Beyond compare the Son of God was seen most glorious. In him all his Father shone, substantial expressed, and in his face divine compassion visibly appeared. Love without end and without measure grace, with which uttering thus he to his Father spake, O Father gracious, was that word which closed thy sovereign sentence, the man should find grace, for which both heaven and earth shall high extol thy praises with thy innumerable sound of hymns and sacred songs, wherewith thy throne encompassed shall resound the ever blessed. For should man finally be lost, should man, thy creature late so loved, thy youngest son, fall circumvented thus by fraud, through joined with his own folly, that be free, that be from thee far, that far be from thee. Weird squeaking noise. I'm being haunted again. Squeak, squeak. Where am I? Father, who art judge of all things made, and judgest only right, or shall the adversary thus obtain his end and frustrate thine? Shall he fulfil his malice and thy goodness bring to naught, or proud return through his heavier doom, yet the revenge accomplished, and to hell draw after him the whole race of mankind, by him corrupted? Or wilt thou thyself abolish thy creation and unmake for him what for thy glory thou hast made? So should thy goodness and thy greatness doth be questioned and blasphemed without defence, to whom the great Creator thus replied, O Son, in whom my soul hath chief delight, Son of my bosom, Son who art alone, my word, my wisdom, and effectual might, all hast thou spoken as my thoughts are, all as my eternal purpose hast decreed. Man shall not quite be lost, but saved, who will, yet not of will in him, but grace in me freely vouchsafed. Once more I will renew his lapsed powers, though forfeit and enthralled by sin to foul exorbitant desires. Upheld by me, yet once more he shall stand on even ground against his mortal foe. By me upheld, that he may know how frail his fallen condition is, and to me are all his deliverance, and to none but me. Some I have chosen of peculiar grace, elect above the rest, so is my will. The rest shall hear me call, and oft be warned their sinful state, and to appease betimes the incensed deity, while offered grace invites, for I will clear the senses dark, what may suffice and what soften stony hearts to pray, repent, and bring obedience due, to prayer, repentance, and obedience due, though but endeavoured with sincere intent, mine ear shall not be slow, my eye not shut, and I will place within them as a guide my umpire conscience, whom, if they will hear, light after light, well us that shall attain, and to the end persisting safe arrive. This is my long sufferance and my day of grace. They who neglect and scorn shall never taste, but hard be hardened, blind be blinded, that they may stumble on, and deeper fall, and none but such from mercy I exclude. But yet all is not done. Man disobeying, disloyal breaks his fealty, and sins against the high supremacy of heaven, affecting godhood, affecting Godhead, and so losing all to expedite his treason. Oh well, sorry about that. Am I still live though? Did that still work, or did that just go a bit weird? It's a bit laggy, but oh well. Let us continue. We shall start from. He asked, but all heavenly choir stood mute, and silence was in heaven. No man's behalf, patron or intercessor, none appeared, much less that durst upon his own head draw the deadly fortune ransom set, for the deadly forfeiture and ransom set, and now without redemption all mankind must have been lost, adjudged to death and hell by doom severe. Had not the Son of God, in whom the fullness dwells of love divine, his dearest mediation thus renewed? Father, thy word is past, man shall find grace, and shall grace not find means that finds her way? The speediest of thy winged messengers to visit all thy creatures, and to all comes unprevented, unimplored, unsought. Happy for man so coming, he her aid can never seek. Once dead in sins and lost, atonement for herself or offering meet, indebted and undone, hath none to bring. Behold me then, me for him, life for life. I offer on me, let thine anger fall. Account me man, I, forsake, will leave thy bosom and his glory next to thee. Freely put off, and for him lastly die. Well pleased on me, let death wreak all his rage. Under his gloomy power I shall not long lie vanquished. Thou hast given me to possess life to myself for ever. By thee I live. Though now to death I yield, and am his due, all that of me can die, yet that debt paid, thou wilt not leave me in the loathsome grave, his prey, nor suffer my unspotted soul for ever with corruption there to dwell. But I shall rise victorious and subdue my vanquisher. Spoiled of his vantage spoil, death his deaths which shall then receive, and stoop inglorious of his mortal sting disarmed. I through the ample air in triumphant high shall lead hell captive, Morge hell, and show the powers of darkness bound. Thou at the sight, pleased out of heaven, shalt look down and smile, while be thee raised I ruin all my foes, death last, and with his carcass glut the grave. Then with the multitude of my redeemed shall enter heaven long absence, and return, Father, to see thy face, wherein no cloud of anger shall remain, but peace assured and reconciliament. Wrath shall be no more, thenceforth be in thy presence joy entire. His words have ended, and his meek aspect silent yet spake, and breathed immortal love to mortal men, above which only shone filial obedience as a sacrifice glad to be offered. He attends the will of the great Father. Admiration seized all heaven. With this might mean, and with attend wondering, but soon the Almighty thus replied: O thou in heaven and earth, the only peace found out for mankind under wrath, O thou my sole complacence, well thou knowest how dear to me are all my works, nor man the least, thou last created. Not for him I spare thee, for my bosom and my right hand, to save, by losing thee a while, the whole race lost. Though therefore whom thou only canst redeem their nature, also to thy nature join, and by thyself man among men on earth, made flesh when time shall be, of virgin seed. By wondrous birth, be thou in Adam's room, the head of all mankind, through Adam's son, as in him perish all men, so in thee, as from a second root, shall be restored as many as are restored. Without thee none, his crimes make guilty all his sons. Thy merit imputed shall absolve them who renounce their own both righteous and unrighteous deeds, and live in thee transplanted, and from thee receive new life. So man, as is most just, shall satisfy for man, be judged and die, and dying rise, and rising with him raise his brethren, ransomed with his own dear life. So heavenly love shall outdo hellish hate, given to death and dying to redeem, so dearly to redeem what hellish hate so easily destroyed, and still destroys in those who, when they may, accept not grace, nor shalt thou, by descending to assume man's nature, lessen or degrade thine own, because thou throned in highest bliss equal to God, and equally enjoying godlike fruition, quitted all to save a world from utter loss, and hast been found, by merit more than birthright, Son of God, found worthiest to be so by being good, far more than great or high, because in thee love hath abounded, more than glory abounds. Therefore thy humiliation shall exalt with thee thy manhood also to this throne. Here shalt thou sit incarnate, here shalt reign both God and man, Son of both God and man, anointed universal King. All power I give thee, reign for ever and assume thy merits. Under thee, as head supreme, thrones, princedoms, powers, dominions I reduce. All knees to thee shall bow, of them that bide in heaven or earth, or under earth in hell. When thou attended, glorious from heaven, shalt in the sky appear, and from thee send the summoning archangels to proclaim thy dread tribunal. Forthwith from all winds the living, and forthwith the sighted dead of all the past ages to the general doom shall hasten. Such appeal shall rouse thy sleep. Then, all thy saints assembled, thou shalt judge bad men and angels. They arranged shall sink beneath the sentence, hell her numbers full. Thenceforth shall be for ever shut. Meanwhile the world shall burn, and from her ashes spring new heaven and earth, wherein the just shall dwell, and after all their tribulations long, see golden days fruitful of golden deeds, with joy and love triumphing, and fair truth. Then thou thy regal sceptre shalt lay by, for regal sceptre then no more shall need. God shall be all in all, but all ye gods adore him, who come to compass all this dies. Adorn the Son, and honour him as me. No sooner had thy Almighty ceased, but all the multitude of angels with a shout, loud as from numbers without number, sweet as from blessed voices uttering joy, heaven rung with jubilee, and loud hosanna filled thy eternal regions. Lowly reverent towards thee the throne they bow, and to the ground with solemn adoration down they cast their crowns, in wove and armament and gold. Immortal amaranth, a flower which once in paradise, fast by thee the tree of life, began to bloom, but soon for man's offence to heaven removed, where first it grew, there grows and flowers aloft, shading the fount of life. And where the river of bliss, thou through mist of heaven rouse our Elysian flowers, her amber stream. With these that never fade, the spirits elect bind their resplendent locks enwreathed with beams. Now in loose garlands thick thrown off, the bright pavements like a sea of jasper shone, impearled with celestial roses smiled. Then crowned again their golden harps they took, harps ever turned, the glittering by their side, like quivers hung with the preamble sweet of charming symphony they introduce their sacred song, and waken raptures high, no voice exempt, no voice but well could join melodious part. Such concord is in heaven. The Father first they sung, omnipotent, immutable, immortal, infinite, eternal King, the author of all being, fountain of light, thyself invisible, amidst the glorious brightness where thou sittest throned inaccessible. But when thou shadest the full blaze of thy beams, and through a cloud drawn round about thee like a radiant shrine, dark with excessive bright thy skirts appear, yet dazzling heaven the brightest. That brightest seraphim approach not, but with doth wings veil their eyes. Thee next they sang, of all creation first begotten Son, divine similitude, in whose consequences countenance without cloud made visible, thy almighty Father shines, whom else no creature can behold, on thee impress the effulgence of his glory abides. Transfused on thee his ample spirit rests, he heaven of heavens and all the powers therein, by thee created and thee thrown down, the aspiring dominations thou that day thy father's dreadful thunder didst not spare, nor stop thy flaming chariot wheels that shook heaven's everlasting frame, while o'er the necks thou rovest of warring angels dismayed. Back from the pursuit thy powers with loud acclaim thee only extolled, son of thy father's might, to execute fierce vengeance on his foes. Not so on man, him through their malice fallen. Father of mercy and grace, thou didst not doom so strictly, but much more to pity incline. No sooner did thy dear and only Son perceive thee purposed not to doom frail man so strictly, but much more to pity encircling, much to pity inclined, he to appease thy wrath, and end the strife of mercy and justice in thy face discerned, regardless of the bliss wherein he sat second to thee, offered himself to die for man's offence. O unexampled love, love nowhere to be found less than divine. Hail, Son of God, Saviour of man, thy name shall be the copious matter of my song henceforth, and never shall my harp thy praise forget, nor from thy Father's praise disjoin. Thus they in heaven, above the starry sphere, their happy hours in joy and hymning spent. Meanwhile, upon the firm opacious globe of this round world, whose first convex divides the luminous inferior orbs, enclosed from chaos and the inroad of darkness old, Satan alighted walks, a globe far off it seemed, now seems a boundless continent, dark, waste, and wild, under the frown of night starless exposed, and ever threatening storms of chaos blustering round, inclement sky, save on that side which from the wall of heaven, though distant far, some small reflection gains of glimmering air, lest vexed with tempest loud. Here walked the friend at large in spacious field, as when a vulture on Eamus bred, whose snowy ridge the roving Tartar bounds, dislodging from a region scarce of prey, to gorge the flesh of lambs and or yearning kids on hills where flocks are fed, flies towards the spring of Ganges and Hiddepi's Indian streams. But in this way lights on the barren plains of Serenkana, where Chinese drive with sail and wind their canine wagons light. So on this windy sea of land the fiend walked up and alone bent on his prey, alone for other alone for other creature in this place, living or lifeless, to be found was none. None yet, but saw hereafter from earth up hither like aerial vapours flew, of all things transitor and vain, when sin with vanity had filled the works of men, both all things vain, and all who in vain things built their fond hopes of glory, or everlasting fame, or happiness in this or the other life, all who have their reward on earth, the fruits of painful superstition and blind zeal, nought seeking but the praise of men, here's to find fit retribution, empty as their deeds, all their unaccomplished works of nature's hand, abortive, monstrous, or unkindly mixed, dissolved on earth, fleet hither and in vain, till final dissolution wander here. Not in the neighbouring moon, as some have dreamed, those argent fields more likely habitants, translated saints, or middle spirits hold betwixt the angelical and human kind. Hither of ill-joined sons and daughters, born first from the ancient world, these giants came with many a vain exploit, though then renowned. The builders next of Babel on the plain of Sennaar, and still with the vain design new Babels, had they with wherewithal would build. Others came single. He who, to be deemed a god, leaped fondly into Aetna's flames. Empedocles, and he who, to enjoy Plato's Elysium, leaped into the sea. Cleombrotus, and many more too long, embryos and idiots, eremites and friars, white, black, and grey, with all their trumpery. Here pilgrims roam that strayed so far to seek in Golgotha him dead, who lives in heaven, and they who, to be sure of paradise, dying, put on the weeds of Dominic, or in the Franciscan think to pass disguised. They pass the planets seven and pass the fixed, and that crystalline sphere whose balance weights the trepidation talked, and that first moved, and now St. Peter at heaven's wickedest seems to wait them with his keys, and now at foot of heaven's ascent they lift their feet, when lo, a violent cross wind from either coast blows them traverse 10,000 leagues away into the devious air. Then mighty sea cows, hoods and habits, with their wearers lost and fluttered into rags, their reliquaries, beads and indulgences, dispensers, pardons, bulls, the sport of winds. All those upheld aloft fly over the backside of the world, far off into limbo large and broad, since called the paradise of fools, a few unknown, long after, and unpeopled and untrod. All this globe the fiend found as he passed, and long he wondered, till at last a gleam of dawning light turned thitherward in haste. He travelled steps far distant he descries, ascending by degrees magnificent, up to the walls of heaven, a structure high, at top whereof but far more rich appeared the work as of a kingly palace gate, with frontispice of diamond and gold, embellishment thick with sparkling ornament gems. The portal shone, inimitable on earth by model, or by shading pencil drawn. The stairs were such as whereon Jacob saw angels ascending and descending, bands of guardians bright, when he from Yasu fled to Padan Aram in the field of Luz, dreaming by night under the open sky, and walking and waking cried, "This is the gate of heaven." Each stair mysteriously was meant, nor stood there always, but drawn up to heaven sometimes, viewless, and underneath a bright sea flowed of jasper or of liquid pearl, whereupon who after came from earth, sailing arrived, wafted by angels, or flew over the lake, wrapped in a chariot drawn by fiery steeds. The stairs were then let down, whether to dare the fiend by easy ascent, or aggravate his sad exclusion from the doors of bliss, direct against which opened from beneath, just o'er the blissful seat of paradise. Passage down to the earth, a passage wide, wider by far than that of after times, over Mount Sion, and though they were large, over the promised lands to God so dear, by which to visit oft these happy tribes. On high behests his angels to and fro passed frequent, and his eyes with choice regard, from Paneas, that fount of Jordan's flood, to Beersheba, where the Holy Land borders on Egypt and the Arabian shore. So wide the opening seemed where bounds were set to darkness, such as bound the ocean wave. Satan from hence now on the lower stair, that scaled by steps of gold to heaven's gate, looks down with wonder at the sudden view of all this world at once, as when a scout through dark and desert ways with peril gone, all night at last by break of cheerful dawn obtains the brow of some high climbing hill, which to his eye discovers unaware the goodly prospect of some foreign land, first seen, or some renowned metropolis, with glistening spires and pinnacles adorned, which now the rising sun gilds with his beams. Such wonders seized through after heaven's seen the spirit malign, but not much more envy seized at sight of all this world beheld so fair. Round he surveys, and well might, where he stood so high above the circling canopy of night's extended shade, from eastern point of Libra to the fleecy star that bears Andromeda, far off the Atlantic seas, beyond the horizon. Then from pole to pole he views in breath, and without longer pause, downright into the world's first region throws his flight precipitant, and wins with ease through the pure marble air his oblique way amongst innumerable stars. that shone stars distance, but nigh hand seemed other worlds, or other worlds they seemed, or happy lies, like those of Hesperian gardens found of old, fortunate fields and groves and flowery vales, thrice happy lies. But who dwelt happy there, he stayed not to inquire. Above them all the golden sun in splendour, likest heaven allured his eyes. Thither his course he bends through the calmed firmament, but up and down by centre or eccentric hard to tell, or longitude where the great luminaire aloof the vulgaire constellations thick. That his lordly eye deep distance that from his lordly eye keep distance due, dispenses light from afar. They as they move thy starry dance in numbers, that compute days, months, and years towards his all-cheering lamp, turn swift their various motions, or are turned by his magnetic beam, that great gently warms the universe unto each inward part with gentle penetration, though unseen shoots invisible virtue even to the deep. So wondrous was set his station bright, there lands the fiend a spot, like which perhaps astronomer in the sun's lucent orb, though through the glazed optic tube yet never saw. The place he found beyond the expression of bright, compared with aught on earth, metal or stone. Not all parts like, but all alike informed with radiant light, as glowing iron with fire. If metal, parts seem gold, parts silver clear, if stone, carbuncle most, or chrysolite, ruby, or topaz, to the 12 that shone in Aaron's breastplate, and the stone besides imagined rather off than elsewhere seen, that stone, or like to that which here below philosophers in vain so long have sought. In vain through their power art thy bind, Voltaire, Hermes, and call upon unbound in various shapes old Proteus from the sea, drain through alembic to his nature form. What wonder then if fields and regions here breathe forth the elixir pure, and rivers run potable gold? When with one virtuous touch thy archimic sun, so far from us remote, produces with terrestrial humour mixed here in the dark so many precious things, of glorious and effect so rare? Here matter new to gaze the devil met, undazzled far and wide his eye commands. For sight no obstacle found here, nor shade, but all sunshine, as when his beams at noon culminate from the equator. Something strange just happened. Nope. Still there? Okay. Culminate from the equator. As they now shot upward still direct, whence no way round shadow from body opaque can fall, and the air nowhere so clear sharpened his visual ray, to objects distance far, whereby be soon saw, within keen a glorious angel stand, the same whom John saw also in the sun, his back was turned, but not his brightness hid. Of beaming sunny rays a golden tear circled his head, nor less his locks behind illustrious on his shoulders fledged with wings lay waving round. On some great charge employed him he seemed, or fixed in cogitation deep. Glad was the spirit impure, as now in hope to find what might direct his wandering flight to paradise and the happy seat of man. His journey's end and our beginning woe, to first he cast to change his proper shape, which else might work him danger or delay. And now a stripling cherub he appears, not of the prime, yet such as in his face youth smiled celestial, and to envy limbs suitable grace diffused, as well he framed. Under a coronet his flowing hair in curls on either cheek played. Wings he wore of many a coloured plume sprinkled with gold. His habit fit for speed succinct, and held before his descent steps a silver wand. He drew not nigh unheard the angel bright, ere he drew high, nigh his radiant visage turned, admonished by his ear, and straight was known the archangel Uriel, one of the 7 who in God's presence nearest to the throne stand ready at command, and ere his eyes that run through all heavens or down to the earth bear his swift errands over moist and dry, o'er sea and land, him, Satan, thus accosts. Uriel, fall thou of heaven's 7 spirits that stand in sight of God's high throne, glorious bright, the first art wont his great authentic will interpreter, through highest heaven to bring, where all his sons thy embassy attend. And here art likeliest by supreme decree like honour to obtain, and as his eye to visit oft this new creation round. Unspeakable desire to see and know all these his wondrous works, but chiefly man, his chief delight and favour, him for whom all these his works so wondrous he ordained, hath brought me from the choirs of cherubim, alone thus wondering. Brightest seraph, tell in which of all these shining orbs hath man his fixed seat, or fixed seat hath none, but all these shining orbs his choice to dwell, that I might find him, and with secret gaze or open admiration him beheld, on whom the great Creator has bestowed worlds, and on whom hath all the graces proud, that both in him and all things as is meet, the universal Maker we may praise, who justly hath driven out his rebel foes to deepest hell, and to repair that loss, created this new happy race of man, to serve him better. Wise are all his ways, so spake the false dissembler unperceived. For neither man nor angel can discern hypocrisy. The only evil that walked invisible, except to God alone, by his permissive will through heaven and earth, and oft through wisdom wake, suspicion sleeps at wisdom's gate, and to simplicity resigns her charge, while goodness thinks no ill where no ill seems, which now for once beguiled Uriel, though regent of the sun, and held the sharpest sighted spirit of all in heaven, who to the fraudulent impostor found in his uprightness answer thus returned, fair angel, thy desire which tends to know the works of God, thereby to glorify the great workmaster, leads to no excuse that reaches blame, but rather merits praise, the more it seems excess that led thee hither from thy imperial mansion thus alone, to witness with thine eyes what some perhaps contend with report here only in heaven. For wonderful indeed are all his works, pleasant to know and worthiest to be all had in remembrance always with delight. But what created mind can comprehend their number, or their wisdom infinite, that brought them forth but hid their causes deep? I saw when at his word the formless mass, this world's materials mould, came to a heap. Confusion heard his voice, and wild uproar stood vast infinitude confined, till at his second bidding darkness fled, light shone, and order from disorder sprung. Swift to their several quarters hastened then the cumbrous elements, earth, blood, air, and fire, and this ethereal quintessence of heaven flew upwards, spirited with various forms, that round orbicular, and turned to stars numberless, as thou seest, and how they move, each had his place appointed, each his course. The rest in circuit wails the universe, look downward on the globe, whose hither side, with light and hence, through but reflected shines, that places earth the seat of man, that light his day, which else as the other hemisphere night would invade. But there the neighbouring moon, so call that opposite fair star, her aid timely interpose, and her monthly round still ending, still renewing, through mid-heaven with borrowed light her countenance triform, hence fills and empties to enlighten the earth, and in her pale dominion checks the night. That spot to which I point is paradise, Adam's abode, those lofty shades his bower. Thy way thou canst not miss, me mine requires. Thus said, he turned, and Satan bowing low, as if to superior saints is wont in heaven, where honour due and reverence none neglects, took leave, and toward the coast of earth beneath down from the ecliptic, sped with hopped success, throws his steep flight with many an airy wheel, nor stayed till on Niphate's top he lights. The end of the third book of Paradise Lost. There we go. A bit shorter than last time, with a few cock-ups in the middle, sorry, and my internet being strange. So there we go. We meet Jesus, the Son of God, offers himself, like Satan in the previous book, offered himself to go up and find Earth. Jesus has offered himself to go down and save Earth. There's a bit of Gnosticism in there as well, if you listen to it. And there'll be an episode soon on Darker Days Radio, not on my podcast, on Darker Days Radio, where me and Mike talk about Gnosticism for 2 hours. It's weird. So go check that out. Darker Days Radio comes out Friday, so that's what, January the 19th, 20th, something like that. So go check that out. It'll be fun. I will be doing my own podcast sometime this week, and I'm going to look at a Japanese tale. I'm going to tell a Japanese tale. It does involve a demon, so I'm not leaving the demonic stuff. It's just Japanese tales are a little bit less evil than most other ones. So yes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that one. That was book 2, book 3. Book 4 shall come next week. Sometime on a Monday next week. Bye-bye.